What's going on, folks? Today we're going to zero in on the perfect pocket pistol. Before we get started, be sure to give us a like and subscribe, as well as dropping a comment down below. We're a growing channel and it helps us out a lot. Alright, so we're talking about the BodyGuard 2.0 from Smith & Wesson. This thing is a relatively new offering. I believe it came out at the tail end of 2024. As far as a pocket pistol, it is, in my opinion, the best offering that you could get currently. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are you getting here and what are you paying for? So first off, the MSRP was, and still maybe is, $400, but at the time that I purchased this, and I did purchase it with my own money, it was $400. Pretty affordable, I'd say. What you're getting out of the box is a 380 ACP double stack striker fired pistol with a relatively nice trigger, flat face, a manual safety. It holds 10 rounds or 12 rounds plus one. And when you actually grab this thing, even without a magazine in here, I'm still able to get my pinky on there. With a 10 round magazine in there, I can absolutely get my pinky on there. And with the 12 round magazine, I've got plenty of space to work with. So the grip is no issue, and for a firearm this small, it's actually impressive how comfortable it is to hold, carry, and shoot. Maybe a tad snappy, but controllable at that. I was very impressed with this. When I took it out to the range, it was easy to shoot, it felt comfortable. I was able to shoot at, farther distances than I had intended for. It may be difficult to see on screen exactly how small this gun is. It's sort of deceiving. It almost looks larger. When you have it in your hand, from this side at least, it looks like a respectable gun. You see this from across the room. You say that guy has a gun, right? But at the same time, my finger almost goes past the barrel there. It is a tiny firearm. I can cover this thing with one hand, right? It is behind this one hand. And just to show you, just one hand, or almost hides behind your cell phone, right? Sticks out just a little bit over here. But it can almost be deceiving how small it is. So just to show you, I have a CZP-10C. So this is like the size of, say, a Glock 19 roughly. And then I've got the BodyGuard. So let's take a look at some of these dimensions side by side. So you can see just how thin this thing is, how short the slide is, and then you can really see how much smaller this gun is in comparison. So, going from, this is a standard sized gun. Going from a grip like this to a grip like on the BodyGuard takes some adjustment. It feels, I consciously have to push a little bit to the right as to not get that low left trigger pull. It's just a little bit more wiggle left to right, but you're gonna get that on your thinner guns like your 43Xs and stuff like that, maybe your 365s. That being said, this is thinner than a standard P365. So the trigger on this thing is actually pretty good. I would compare the feeling of it to that of a P365. It also feels pretty similar to the nicer performance triggers from Smith & Wesson. We've got just a little bit of take up until we get to that like 90 degrees of the wall where it's perfectly flat. And then it just breaks after, I'd say, about 4.5 pounds. There it is. So a little bit farther than the wall is. Altogether, it's an extremely usable trigger, and it's much better than that of like an LCP. So I'm a big fan of the way that they cut out the trigger guard on here. You can actually get a nice full 3-finger grip down below, even with just the standard flush fitting magazine. That helps out a lot. I'm not a fan of when your pinky is just hanging off and you just kind of have to make do and mush it into the bottom of the gun with your other hand. I believe that pinky adds a lot of grip strength. All right, so let's talk capacity. This thing comes with a 10-round magazine as well as a 12-round magazine. So 10 rounds or 12 rounds, or if you carry one in the chamber, 11 rounds or 13 rounds, with a backup mag of either. That's a comfortable amount to be carrying around. 10 rounds, bare minimum, is usually my comfort level, and bare minimum caliber would be 380. So I know a lot of people would not feel comfortable carrying a 380. They feel like that is a sissy baby caliber, but the truth is, they will drop you. 380 that has been made in the last 10 years, realistically, modern munitions kick ass. But something like a 380 is right at that level where there's justifiably enough power and it's controllable enough to where when I can have just enough capacity to make me feel comfortable, a firearm this small being a backup or a deep concealable gun. Some people would call this a mailbox gun, or maybe, just a pocket pistol. Realistically, you might pocket carry this. Something you could toss into a bag, toss into anywhere, a small little place. That's what this gun is for. And to even have an excuse to never leave the house without having something to defend yourself, 10 rounds, or let's say 11 rounds of 380, I'll take it. And it's to the point where that alone is enough to justify this gun. But then when you shoot the gun and it works and it's reliable and comfortable, you end up just carrying it and shooting it a lot more than you think you would. For a little $400 gun, this thing has all other micro compact 380s beat, hands down. There's no question about it. If you don't own one of these, get one. This is absolutely the bottom line of personal protection. If you're a person that's not a gun person, that just wants to defend yourself, get a BodyGuard 2.0. If you're not into the big gun, all these other things intimidate you, this is a nice, small, easily usable gun. So when it comes to the grip, we've got an undercut trigger guard up front there, which allows you to get that proper 3-finger hold. The texturing on the side is sort of what I would call a sticky sandpaper feel. It's not quite a bite, which is good for when you're throwing this into any sort of small space. This is a very tuckable gun. It's not going to brush up against you in the wrong way. But that being said, when you actually get a hold of the firearm, there is still a sort of positive feel in your hand. When you shoot this thing, it stays still. It's actually relatively well textured all around. Right here, the takedown release, there's texturing up front, which is kind of nice because it allows you to, no matter how you hold your gun, to find some sort of texturing spot. But they textured that. There's a nice textured pad up front, as well as even the safety has a nice texturing on it. Overall, the feel of the gun is very smooth and very tight. For such a small gun, sometimes things get a little too complicated, especially when you start taking these things apart. But in my experience, this has been as easy to own, run, use as any other firearm. So the safety on this thing is, it's different than other safeties that I have used, and in a good way. It's very stiff. When I got this out of the box, it was incredibly stiff. It would hurt, literally digging into your finger with the texturing on there just to activate and deactivate that. With some, just doing this all day, being able to break that thing in, it's gotten a lot easier, but the tension on there is still there. I would say it's gotten smoother, but the tension is still remained. And so that's a good thing. You want a good manual safety. If you're gonna have a good manual safety, or if you're gonna have a manual safety, you want a good one, right? And so that makes me feel comfortable to the point where I could carry this gun, and I'm not recommending this to anybody, but you can carry this gun without a holster. A literal true pocket gun. And so at that point, when you are able to remove that holster, remove the bulk from that holster, and literally have the smallest capable gun that you could carry, you never have an excuse to leave the house without protection, right? So now that's the thing. You never have an excuse to leave the house without something. So you inevitably find a million reasons to why, oh, you can't carry your EDC today. You got something going on with that, it's dirty, whatever it is, so you're just gonna pick this thing up. It's easier, you're already out the door, right? So it's sort of a lifestyle thing at the same time. Somebody who's incredibly busy and not super into the gun world and not surrounding themselves by that sort of thing all day, maybe just needs this as a simple thing. Grab, keys, wallet, and the smallest gun that you could throw on anything, and you're ready to go for your day. I'm a big fan of these serrations on the side. It makes it incredibly easy to manipulate the slide, both from the rear and the back. It doesn't bite too hard, gives you just enough traction. I think they look pretty sweet. That's just my personal opinion. Smith & Wesson guns have grown on me aesthetically. I used to think they were quite boring. Now I think they look kind of sleek, maybe a little bit Aston Martin-y, but played down like a budget Aston Martin-y. So, Aston Martin. So when I bought this thing, I was thinking, this is just a good, backup gun to have, or just in case I don't have another firearm available. This is an excuse to always have something to protect yourself, right? If there's limitations of things that you're wearing that maybe prevent you from carrying some larger pistol options, something like this is an excuse to be able to carry no matter what you're wearing, no matter where you're going, no matter who you're around, that sort of thing. So that was the intended purpose when I got this. My EDC is supposed to be this CZP-10C, which I love, and it is great. However, more often than not, just out of convenience, I find myself just carrying the BodyGuard, whether I'm just going to work or something like that. It's just so easy to be ready to go. I don't need a nice belt or even a holster. As I talked before, I feel comfortable actually utilizing just that manual safety, depending on method of carry. All right, let's talk barrel length. We've got an impressive 2 3/4 inch barrel on this thing. And if anybody asks, that is just plenty. It performs like a bigger gun. I would say overall, this thing shoots like a bigger gun than it is. As far as recoil mitigation, accuracy, I've had 0 issues whatsoever. So it's kind of tough for you guys to see on camera, but inside we have a 2-piece feed ramp. So normally on a gun, you would have a 1-piece feed ramp being built into the barrel of the gun. That's still true on here, but we also have a secondary feed ramp built into the frame of the gun. And these 2 feed ramps sort of meet up. Right where those meet up, there is sort of this bump or ridge. I did run into some feeding issues using Hornady critical defense ammunition, mostly I believe due to the geometry of the ribbing on the right where the bullet meets the case. Just for whatever reason, wasn't feeding. Maybe it would hit that and sort of bump up, but I would get the bullet sort of angled towards the top of the barrel and just would not go in. Pretty much consistently. You could hand cycle the entire magazine. It would not cycle. You could shoot 1 shot, rack the slide, go through an entire magazine that way. I did end up switching to some SIG V-Crown, I believe. It's either V-Crown or 365, I'm not sure. That ended up working pretty good. I was carrying that for a minute. Then I just picked up some Hornady Black. Figured I'd give Hornady another go around, this time not critical defense. That's been working super great for me. I do plan on picking up some Federal Punch since they don't make HSTs anymore, which is a disappointment. I'm curious about trying that out. Other than just being slightly ammo picky, This thing, if you find a round that it runs, I mean, this thing runs flawlessly. I've had, I would say, to the best of my memory, 0 malfunctions other than, you know, just the first little bit, figuring out the ammo, you know, what it liked to feed. Other than that, it's been dead reliable and it's been awesome. I love this thing. I think it's an incredibly good deal. It's an incredibly practical firearm for pretty much everybody to own. It's a good gun for you know, at the end of the day. But also your mom, your grandma, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend, your maybe a younger child you're teaching to shoot, you know, something that they could handle. There's a lot of good reasons to own this, but it's an incredibly practical and just useful firearm to have. It's easy to pick and it's easy to carry. You might need to go get, you know, a nice holster and a nice belt and, you know, the extra mag carrier and all that type of stuff for carrying your standard handgun. But something like this will just slip into a jacket pocket, I could probably even fit it in my shirt pocket, to be honest. Yep, that's my shirt pocket carry. So just in case, we're on it. Overall impressions of this gun, it's awesome, and you should just get one. Just pretty much that. The old BodyGuard 2.0 was, I guess, a good gun for the time that it came out. I never used one, I never shot one. A lot of people loved them. They came with a built-in laser down below. But the 2.0 is a massive upgrade, just to the trigger system, to the magazine, to the ergonomics. It's a win-win for both me and Smith & Wesson. I know they came out with the carry comp, or just the compensated version of these recently. I'm not as big of a fan of those because although I do understand reducing that recoil a little bit more, you know, somewhat snappy firearm. A gun like this, I would rather maintain the smallest form factor possible. I want a tiny gun that I could put pretty much anywhere that's as lightweight as possible. And adding that comp just adds a little bit of length, which I feel like detracts from the whole concept, at least in my mind, for owning something like this. This is my mailbox gun, this is my pocket gun. This thing is just, it ends up coming with me more times than not. And it's practical, it's reliable, it's not bad looking. You got good warranty on these things. There's a million reasons to own one. You can find a good deal on them, probably from gun deals or something like that. I would definitely recommend that you go look around, try to find one, maybe go shoot one at a range, see what you think. But give it a look. This thing is awesome. You know, just a fantastic modern micro pistol, despite caliber. But especially being a 380, an awfully contested category of firearms, you know, often looked down upon. This thing has something to say. So shout out Smith & Wesson. This is an incredible product. I'm happy to see people making good decisions at companies. So this is awesome. I love mine. Go pick you one up. And if there's something you guys want to see on the channel, let me know. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been Perfect Zero.